Shabbos. This week's portion is Parshas Tzav, and it's also a special Shabbos when we read the section of the Torah dealing with the preparation of the Parah Aduma, the red heifer, which allows people who have come in contact with death to be purified and re-enter the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and eventually the Beis Hamikdash, the temple. And of course, this is not something which is operative today. We don't have a Parah Aduma, we don't have a red heifer, we don't have the Mikdash, the tabernacle. We're all in a state of tumah. We're all in the state of spiritual impurity. But what we hope for is a time when we'll get back to that level of purity, when the temple will be rebuilt, when the Jews will be completely redeemed, and the world will live in peace. So we're hoping for Messianic times. And right now we're between the holiday of Purim, which we were saved from our enemies, and the holiday of Pesach, which is the redemption of Jewish people from Egypt, the freeing from slavery, and their eventual accepting the Torah and entering the land of Israel. But they never reached the pure ideal of Messianism, where everybody lives in peace and the world is sort of one in serving God. So I'd like to address today, what is that Messianic ideal? And depending on which of the rabbinic commentaries or Jewish thinkers you read, you'll have a very different approach. I'd like to approach it from Maimonides. And Maimonides has a Mishnah Torah, wrote a Mishnah Torah, the Code of Jewish Law. The very beginning of his Code of Jewish Law, he sets down philosophical principles. The very end of his Mishnah Torah, the Code of Jewish Law, talks about the time of Mashiach. Now, Jewish law is not really the time of Mashiach, and it's not philosophy. But Maimonides understood that if you don't understand these principles, the Torah has no value. And he sees the end of days, the Messianic ideal, as the purpose and the goal of the Torah and the mitzvahs and worshiping God. So what is that Messianic ideal? So I quote from Maimonides at the very end, and he says, in that time, Lo yesham lo rav lo mochama, will not be famine or war. And I'll translate in English. There will not be envy or competition, for goodwill will flow in abundance, and all the delights will be freely available as dust. The occupation of the entire world will be solely to know God. Therefore, the Jews will be great sages and know the hidden matters, grasping the knowledge of the Creator according to the full extent of human potential. As it states in Isaiah, the world will be filled with the knowledge of God as the waters cover the ocean bed. In Hebrew, that's Ki mala aretz deas Hashem kamayim layam machasim. Those are the last words of Maimonides' Code of Jewish Law. And the way I understand it, and especially after reading the Guide for the Perplexed, Maimonides' philosophical work, it's quite apparent that the purpose Maimonides sees for the world is really for there to be truth in the world. And that truth will guide us both in following the Torah, living a life of morality and ethics, of peace. Everything will flow when there's truth. And interestingly, we live in a time right now where we're seeing truth being lost, truth being distorted, lies spreading much quicker than any truth could possibly spread. And in a way, it's a time where, personally, you start despairing. Is this ideal going to happen? Are we working towards that eventual truth? And many of us thought with the spread of the internet, truth will be spreading far and wide. It's available to all. In ancient times, very few people had the ability to study philosophy, science, knowledge. Most people were illiterate. Today, literacy has spread through the world. We have the printing press, we have books, and now we have the ability to just pick up a phone and know anything we want in this world. And you'd think that truth would be that which dominates. But yet, somehow, we've been cursed, I would say, with social media, which allows falsehoods to spread. And the question is, should we despair and say we're not going in the right direction? Or maybe we are. So I want to bring you back to what Maimonides says a chapter before, when he starts talking about the coming of Mashiach and the spread of truth. And he says, and this section of Maimonides is censored in many editions. The printed edition that I have does not have this. It was censored for obvious reasons. And he says that, and I'll read it in English. He says, Jesus of Nazareth, who aspired to be the Mashiach, was also alluded in Daniel's prophecies. I'll skip the proof text. And then he says, can there be a greater stumbling block than Christianity? All the prophets spoke of Mashiach as the Redeemer of Israel and their Savior, who would gather the dispersed and strengthen their observance of the mitzvot. In contrast, Christianity caused the Jews to be slain by the sword, the remnants to be scattered and humbled, the Torah to be altered, and the majority of the world to err and serve a God other than the Lord. Right? Maimonides lived in the 1100s and the 1000s with the Crusades. Christianity was not exactly a friend at that time to the Jewish people. Maimonides goes on, he says, nevertheless, the intent of the Creator of the world is not within the power of man to comprehend, for his ways are not our ways, nor are his thoughts our thoughts. Ultimately, all the deeds of Jesus of Nazareth and that Ishmaelite who arose after him, meaning Muhammad, will only serve to prepare the way for Mashiach's coming and the improvement of the entire world, motivating the nations to serve God together. As it says in Zephaniah, I will transform the peoples to a pure language, that they will call upon the name of God and serve him with one purpose. He goes on to say, how will this come about? The entire world has already become filled with the mention of Mashiach, Torah, and mitzvot. These matters have been spread to the furthermost islands, to many stubborn-hearted nations. They discuss these matters and the mitzvot of the Torah, saying, these mitzvot were true, but were already negated in the present age and are not applicable for all time. Others say, implied in the mitzvot are hidden concepts that cannot be understood simply. The Mashiach has already come and revealed those hidden truths. When the true Messianic king will arise and prove successful, his position becoming exalted and uplifted, they will all return and realize that their ancestors endowed them with a false heritage, and their prophets and ancestors caused them to err. What Maimonides is really saying is something that we should be able to relate to. He's saying that Christianity spread the word of the Torah. The Jewish approach is that the way it was spread was false and distorted, but it spread it nonetheless. Today, Christianity is somewhat closer to Judaism in the sense that they don't see themselves as the enemy of the Jewish people. Maimonides lived in an Islamic world where he understood that there was persecutions. In many parts of the Muslim world, Jews were persecuted, but Maimonides lived in a part of the Muslim world where Judaism was somewhat accepted, and he was a doctor in the Sultan's palace. And he understood that these ideas are spreading. They might be distorted, but there's at least a foundation of truth. There's knowledge out there. And today, when I talk about knowledge of philosophical truth, knowledge of God, morality, but also factual truth, because without factual truth, we can't come to the truth of philosophy or the truth of morality and of God. We need both. Today we see it all distorted, but it's out there still. It's there to be discovered, and the tools are out there, just like the tools of the Torah are out there for both the Christian and Muslim world, and now throughout the world. Even the Eastern world, which doesn't follow Christianity or Islam, they know about the Torah. They know about what they call Judeo-Christian principles. Judaism has spread far and wide as far as their message. We are known throughout the world. But it's not just being known for the Jewish people for what we've done or for the establishment of even a state. Of course, in Maimonides, I didn't read all the sections. Establishment of the land of Israel and returning to the land of Israel are also important. But they are, the way I understand it, they are byproducts of truth spreading. And therefore, what we have to hope for is that this Messianic ideal should not be lost on us. We should not despair that although we see truth falling before us like I never expected, like many people have never expected, it still is, the seed of truth is there. We just have to wait. It takes many years. Maimonides wrote this 800 years ago. We've gone through ups and downs. We lived through the Holocaust, but Jews are resilient. They established a state. Christianity changed its approach to Judaism post-Holocaust. There's hope in the world. There's hope that truth will out. There's hope that people, no matter how much ignorance is being spread, no matter how many lies are being spread throughout the world, eventually truth will come to the surface. And hopefully, as Maimonides says at the very end, that Mala Aretz Deya Kamayim Layam Machasim, that the world will be full of knowledge like the water is spread out over the earth. And we all wish and hope for that day. And when we come to the holiday of Passover, we're not just remembering the past redemption. As many commentaries say, we have to relive it. We have to see ourselves as going through that redemptive process. We have to see ourselves as accepting the Torah once again. We have to see ourselves as reestablishing the knowledge that we gained at that time. And our job, as I often say, as it says in Isaiah, is to be an Ar Lagayim, to a light unto the nations. We have to be there. We can't force it down people's throats, but we have to be a model of truth and seeking truth. And hopefully this is a message that the world will understand very soon. Good Shabbos.